What if I told you that researchers think they can predict when you'll hit menopause just by tracking tiny temperature changes? Not the obvious hot flashes everyone knows about, but subtle shifts that happen before you notice anything at all. It's like having a crystal ball in your thermometer.
Hi there, I'm Tony Lee, and this is Hot Flasher, your daily menopause podcast that serves up fresh news, research, and wellness tips. I've built a daily news pipeline to find the latest on women's health and menopause research. Allow me to introduce my co-host, Nikki, who handles the headlines. Take it away, Nikki.
Thanks, Tony. We've got some genuinely fascinating stuff today. So, this temperature prediction thing, I have to admit, when I first saw this headline from the Times, I was skeptical. We already know that temperature regulation goes haywire during menopause. Hot flashes are literally the poster child for this whole experience. But this research is looking at something completely different. These scientists are suggesting they can detect menopause onset by monitoring tiny temperature fluctuations that happen before any symptoms show up. We are not talking about the dramatic temperature swings of hot flashes. These are subtle changes that require careful tracking to even notice. The practical implications are pretty significant if this pans out. Right now, we're mostly playing detective with perimenopause, looking backward at irregular periods and connecting dots after symptoms have already started disrupting our lives. The idea that we could get a heads up before the chaos begins, that could change how we approach hormone therapy timing, career planning, even relationship conversations. Of course, the cynic in me wonders about the logistics. Are we talking about wearing continuous temperature monitors, daily tracking? How long would you need to collect data to see these patterns? The research doesn't give us all those details yet, but it's the kind of development that makes you think we might actually be moving toward more predictive healthcare instead of just reactive medicine. Moving on to something that caught my attention for different reasons, there's new research out of Korea looking at reproductive history and heart failure risk in postmenopausal women. This is a massive nationwide study which gives it some real statistical weight. What's interesting here is that they're not just looking at hormone therapy use, which is what we usually see in cardiovascular research for our demographic. They're examining the whole reproductive picture: pregnancies, breastfeeding duration, age at menopause, all of it, and how those experiences correlate with heart failure risk later in life. The Korean healthcare system is particularly good for this kind of research because they have comprehensive national health records. When researchers can follow hundreds of thousands of women through their medical journeys, patterns become much clearer than in smaller studies. I'm curious about how these findings might translate to women in other countries with different reproductive patterns, different diets, different healthcare access. Korean women tend to have different reproductive timelines than women in the US or Europe. But cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of postmenopausal women everywhere. So any research that helps us understand the connections between our reproductive experiences and heart health is worth paying attention to. It also reinforces something we've talked about before. Menopause isn't just about hot flashes and mood swings. The cardiovascular implications are huge, and they're often underemphasized in conversations about menopause management. The third piece of research today is asking whether sarcopenia should be our new health marker for postmenopausal women. Sarcopenia is age-related muscle loss, and it's a bigger deal than most people realize. We spend a lot of time talking about bone density in menopause conversations, which makes sense. Osteoporosis is a real concern, but muscle mass might be even more predictive of overall health outcomes. Strong muscles protect your bones, yes, but they also protect your metabolism, your balance, your independence, your energy levels. The question these researchers are posing is whether tracking muscle mass and muscle function should become as routine as bone density scans for postmenopausal women. It's an intriguing idea because muscle loss is something we can actually do quite a bit about with resistance training and adequate protein intake. I like that this research is looking beyond the traditional markers. Bone density is important, but it's not the whole picture. If sarcopenia screening became standard, it might push more healthcare providers to have conversations about strength training with their postmenopausal patients. Right now, those conversations happen inconsistently, if at all. The practical challenge is that muscle mass assessment isn't as straightforward as a bone density scan. There are several different methods, and they're not all equally accessible or affordable, but the principle is sound. We should be tracking the health markers that give us the most actionable information about our long-term well-being. What strikes me about all three of these research developments is that they're pushing beyond the obvious symptoms we associate with menopause. Temperature prediction, cardiovascular connections, muscle mass as a health indicator. These approaches treat menopause as a complex biological transition with far-reaching implications, not just a collection of uncomfortable symptoms to manage. The temperature prediction research could help us get ahead of the transition instead of just responding to it. The cardiovascular research reminds us that our reproductive history matters for our long-term health in ways we're still discovering. And the sarcopenia research suggests we might need to expand our definition of what constitutes essential health monitoring for women over 50. Makes you wonder what else we'll discover as researchers start looking at menopause through different lenses.
Thanks for listening to Hot Flasher. We're back tomorrow with more, so don't forget to subscribe. See you tomorrow.